Hi, I'm Chris Schlueter, Master Gardener, food blogger, and writer. Gardening, cooking, healthy and tasty food is my passion. Welcome to my country kitchen, where we'll cook fast, fresh, with the best ingredients you can find. Come join me now. It's cold outside right now, and what's a good thing to really warm me up? It's soups. Soups are really healthy for you, and they also really warm your soul up. So today we're going to learn about some of my favorite soups and how you can make them. One of my favorite soups, and probably the best soup everybody needs to know how to make, is chicken noodle soup. Especially when you get to the cold and the flu season, soup will really help you kind of nurse you along and help you feel better. And it always kind of reassures you that yes, that the end is coming and I'm going to be feeling better soon. And I'll show you how quick and easy it is to make. There's no reason that you can't make a soup like a chicken noodle soup and not have to buy it in the store. So what we start out with is a couple of stalks of celery and a couple stalks of carrots and a half of a large onion. And as you can see here, I have this sauteing in my Dutch oven here. I happened to find some organic carrots at the store, and I found some that are purple and yellow and orange. And now I'm going to just add a little bit of celery to this, and we'll get this sauteing. And for cutting a celery, it's very simple to do. It's just like cutting any vegetable. Just make sure you always keep your fingers curved under and just chop away. Now just chop away into the little bite-sized pieces. That's the main thing. If you like chunky soup, feel free to go ahead and make big chunks, but most people like to have a nice bite-sized soup. And there's really not a lot of ingredients with this soup. What there is, though, is a lot of spices. And that's one thing you really need to kind of figure out when you're making soups, is find out what spices go with the soup, because the more spices you have, the more healthier it's going to be for you. They add a lot of flavor also to the soup. So while this is sauteing, I'm going to add in some garlic as well. And this recipe is very interesting. It has 8 cloves of garlic, which seems like a lot, but it really flavors the soup really well. And so I mince these 8 cloves of garlic, and we're gonna add those right into our softened carrots and onions. Okay, we'll just let this kind of go by itself and start browning up there. And now what we need to do is add some spices. And we have quite an array here, and I'll just do them once so you can see what I have. We have a half teaspoon of each of these spices. Here's a half teaspoon of dried basil, a half teaspoon of turmeric, and turmeric is a really good spice. It's a healthy spice. It's for anti-inflammatory too. It's good for arthritis. But this also gives a little golden color to the soup. And I have some pepper flake. It's my dried cayenne peppers that for my garden that I put in a blender. And I need a half teaspoon of those, like a red hot chili flake, and half a teaspoon of oregano. And this is my oregano that I dry in the garden. And so I just kind of crush up the leaves in my hand to release the oils. And that's gonna be about a half a teaspoon. And we also need a half a teaspoon of chili powder. You can use any chili powder you want. Your favorite kind is always the best to put in a soup. And we're gonna add some ground cayenne pepper. That'll give you a little of a kick in there. And cayenne pepper is really good if you have a runny nose or a cold or a sore throat. And we're gonna also add a teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder. As you can see, it's really starting to incorporate into the vegetables here. And I just browned the vegetables in extra virgin olive oil, and when you're starting to brown them with the spices, if you notice that it's sticking a little bit together, just add a little dash of olive oil, and then that'll kind of make it smoother and silkier. Okay, that looks like that's pretty well mixed up. Now I have a couple more other things to add, and one of them is some crushed rosemary, which would be about a half teaspoon. And this is also from my garden, so you can see it's going to be a little bit larger flakes, but that's okay because it'll blend really good into the soup. And then we also need a bay leaf, and I just thought I'd show you these. I actually grew bay leaves in my garden in a pot last year, and I brought the pot back in for the winter. So I picked these from my winter pot of bay leaves. I let them dry, and they look really nice and fresh. So I'm gonna stick a bay leaf in the soup, and we're gonna keep this at a little bit higher temperature. And the next thing we need to know what to do is to add some liquid. And when you add liquid, it's chicken stock. And you can also make your own chicken stock. You need 2 quarts of it, so I have 2 here. The chicken stock is basically you just make that with celery and carrots and onions, and then you strain the juice out of it. So a bought-in box is just fine. This has to be organic type. And here's one that I had in the freezer. What I'll do is I'll make a bunch of chicken stock ahead of time, and then I'll just put it in a jar. And I won't fill it all the way up to the top because you need some headroom so that when it freezes, it will expand a little bit. And then you just take it out overnight and you have it ready to thaw out for your soup. This is a basic. You need chicken stock in your pantry all the time. You can use it in so many dishes, so keep that in stock all the time. Now I'm gonna let this get up to a boil. So I'll turn this way up high. And another thing that I'm gonna tell you that you can do that will cut this time or you're really rushed is you can make all this stuff ahead. You could put everything up to the broth ahead of time and then put this in your slow cooker like on a low or warm so you come back home. And when you come back home, you can add your noodles and your chicken. So if you don't have time to do it all before supper, go ahead and start to do it before you go to work, and you can come home to that. You can also make any of the soups I'm doing today in an Instant Pot, which is really kind of a new craze. And I do teach classes on how to work with Instant Pot, so look at community education for that. And we're going to add some egg noodles to this, and I just have some hand tossed ones here, and I break mine up a little bit so that they're a little bit easier to eat. And I think I'll put just a little bit more in. There is no measurement on this. It's just like what you think is gonna be about right. But remember, the noodles will go about double the size that they are. And when this gets up to a boil, we're gonna wait until the noodles are soft. And I'm going to come back and add some chicken to this and finish this off so it's ready to eat for a nice lunch. Okay, our chicken soup is really nice and ready to dish up. As you can see, the noodles are well done. It's nice and piping hot. All we need to do is add a last couple ingredients. Here's our chicken, and the chicken has to be cooked. If you're out of chicken and you don't have any in the freezer, just pick up a rotisserie chicken. It'll make it twice as fast. And basically, you just need to get this nice and warm. And the other thing I like to add in my chicken noodle soup is a little bit of lemon zest. It just kind of brightens up the flavors. A lot of vegetable soups are good with just a little dash of lemon, a little squeeze I'll put in, and then the lemon juice. Another optional item you can add is a little bit of dill. You can add like a little half teaspoon of dill, and I'm just adding a little bit that I dried over the summer from my garden. If you aren't a dill lover, just omit this, but I think it adds another depth of flavor to this. Now we're ready to dish up our delicious flu-fighting, cold-fighting chicken noodle soup. Here's what the soup looks like. So you can see what it is. All the flavors are really well together, and the chicken is really dispersed through there. And look, that didn't take very long at all, did it? So I encourage you to make some heartwarming, healthy chicken noodle soup. Now we're gonna make something that you can eat along with your soups. You need some type of a sandwich, don't you? Well, I think the best thing is just a good old classic grilled cheese, but mine has a little bit of a twist to it. This is beer battered grilled cheese, and it's really easy to make. All you need is 1 egg, and then you need 1/4 cup of flour and 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder, which I mix in a little bag, and I kind of shake it up, and then I kind of mix the egg really well before I add anything else to it. And now I'll add the flour and the chili powder mixture. I'm just gonna kind of get this so it's like a paste a little bit, so it'll be easier to add the liquid in. Okay, and now we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of a pale ale beer. And I'm using really light beer here. And I'm showing you that we're doing this at the provolone and a cheddar cheese today, but there's lots of other cheeses that this will go good with. It goes good with pepper jack cheese, Gouda, Havarti, Jarlsberg. Those are all good cheeses. So after we have the batter all made, we can get our bread ready. And I just butter one side and use a nice, good crusty bread. That'll get it nice and toasty and golden. And I'm gonna butter both sides of it with a good unsalted butter. And I'm gonna flip the butter side down as I build my sandwich. And we're going to add a piece of the provolone cheese on here, the cheddar cheese. And if you're really cheesy, you can add even more cheese. Well, we're just gonna add a little bit today so you can see how this is so fun to make. And the other unusual thing I'm gonna show you how to do is how we are going to add a little piece of fruit to this. We're gonna add some apple pear. An apple pear is a nice round pear that is a little crispy. And it gives the sandwich a little bit of a crunch to it. Now you don't have to peel these, but if you don't peel these, make sure you wash the fruit very, very, very well. And so now that I have the apple pear peeled, I'm going to cut this in half. You can use a melon baller or you can just use a knife and take out the inside here so you got the core, just like an apple does. And then I'm gonna cut a very thin slice. You need a real thin slice to go into the sandwich, so we're gonna cut it very thin. I'm gonna put 2 in here. So there's the apple pear in the sandwich, but we need one more good tasty thing. We need a couple slices of bacon. And make sure the bacon is pre-made, so it's a good way to use leftover bacon, but it gives it more of a crunch. So you can see, here's our batter, ready to go. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna dip the sandwich in the batter, make sure it gets all nice and soaked up with that bread. And that's why you want a nice crusty bread, so it can soak up all the liquid. And then when it gets on there, put it onto a buttered skillet. And I have a nice big spatula. This is actually a pancake spatula, but it works really good for sandwiches. You also could put this in the oven and put it in like 350, 375 oven and just let it toast. And for about 15 minutes or until it's nice and golden brown too. So I have this in the pan. And we're gonna let it fry up, and you basically just wanna let it fry until your cheese starts to really melt. Okay, it looks like our grilled cheese is just about done. Nice and golden on both sides. Yes, I think it's ready to plate up. So you can see, it's melted cheese in the middle there, and the bacon and the pear. And I'm just gonna cut this up so you can see all the goodness that's inside there. And we should have a nice little cheese pull in there. See how that has melted perfectly? Wouldn't this be a really good addition to a soup meal? Nice, warm, cheesy, perfect for the winter time. And I also want to show you a plant that I think is perfect for the winter too. It's one of my favorites. It's kalanchoe. Kalanchoe is actually a succulent plant. This plant does not need a lot of water, but it's perfect for the winter time. In the winter time is the perfect ideal temperature for it. It needs a lot of darkness, so make sure you keep it in a place that does not get any artificial light during the evening, and a temperature spot where it's cooler, like 65 or less. That will promote it to bloom. And this just started getting buds on it, and now that I have the buds forming and blooming, I'm going to keep this in a well-lit area, and I will continue to water it with some plant food with this. And when the leaves of the flower start wilting away, just pinch them off, and then you can pinch off one of these stems on this plant and you can restart it into another plant. So it'd be like propagating it by just pinching off the stem, putting it in some root hormone, and then adding it to a pot with some dirt in it, and you can have even more kalanchoes. They come in lots of colors, red, pink, lots of them. So when you're looking for a nice plant for the wintertime to brighten it up when it's really dreary outside, considering looking for plants that have flowers on them. So add some flowering plants to your daily living. If you want the recipes, go to Cooking in the Country with Chris on my Facebook page, or you can go to my website, cjinspirations.wordpress.com. You'll find the recipes and more there.